everyone, in today's video I'll be sharing my process of creating this drawing of the Headless Horseman using markers. Now this was an idea that I had for Halloween this year, of drawing the Headless Horseman. So you can see that was the initial sketch, which I did change a bit for the final drawing. Then I obviously used a mechanical pencil with a very light hand, and I drew the entire drawing again, and I drew it onto a sheet of marker paper, and then I started going over all the line work that I've done with the pencil. I started going over it with the Copic multiliners. I'm using different size nibs depending on what area I'm working on and the detail I'm adding. Thicker lines for more shadowy areas and thinner lines for the fine hairs or the fine areas where I don't want to have too much emphasis on the line work. So I'm going through all the sections with the markers. I'm covering everything, the entire drawing with the markers, even just pointing out certain areas where there's hair on on the legs of the horse, going to the hooves. So I just pointed out those areas so that when I'm going over the markers, I know where those areas are. And also the cloak and the creases in the cloak, I've also pointed that out, and with the markers and with the multiliners, and then I'm going to know where those areas are going to get the shadows when I'm putting in the marker. Now I'm going through, after I've done the line work with the multiliners, then I just went through with an eraser. You can either use a kneaded eraser or an eraser that will not smudge. If you've got light lines, you wouldn't really have much smudging once you erase your pencil lines. And then I start working with the markers. It's important to make sure your pencil lines are erased completely so that you don't stain your markers when you will go over with them over the drawing, and also ensure that or test out if you don't have a Copic multiliner, whichever fine liner or multiliner you're using, that pen or ink, just double check to see on a separate piece of paper if it does smudge with when you apply marker over, because some inks do smudge, and in this case I'm using the Copic multiliners because I know they don't smudge when I work with markers over. So try to just test it out and see whichever one you've got. If it's not a Copic multiliner, just check and see if it does allow you to work with the markers without smudging, just to avoid you damaging or having smudging on your final piece. So now it's a layering process with markers. So I'm going section by section, layer by layer. I start off with a light layer, and then I work my way through darkening it as I put layer and the next layer and then work to the next layer. So remember to always start light and then go darker, because once you put on a dark color, you can't lighten it when it comes to markers. So you'll have to add multiple layers to make it darker, but you can't make it light. So try to start off light and then work your way darker. And remember also to keep your shadow areas dark. So when you're doing a drawing or your illustration, remember to keep highlighting those shadow areas so that it can be seen on your drawing as well, to make it look more 3D and not completely flat. So now I'm starting to work on the horse as well. Now I am going over with the lightest gray tone that there is in the set, and I am going over the entire drawing with that, the entire horse. Just want to get a base color on so I don't have that white showing through. And I'm not too concerned about the patchy look of the markers at this moment, because that actually is going to, as I build up more layers, it's going to add to the detail of the piece and also the shadows and make it look more 3D, give it more 3D look and make it look more realistic. So I'm not so concerned about that at the moment. You will see I'm going to go much darker than it is at the moment, but I'm just remembering to start off with the shadow areas and then go darker and darker as I need to. But obviously those shadow areas will still be separate from the actual drawing, and you will still see some of it showing through when I go over, because I will be going over it with just the shadow areas and then I start going over with the next layer. You will see I'm doing that. You will see now when I go over after I'm done with the reins, you can see I'm going over with another layer, and some of that patchy that was showing is actually helping to create a more three-dimensional look to the horse, which is actually adding to its look. So it's not important to worry about that at the initial stages. As you build up your layers and you use, in this case I'm using the blending marker just to get those marker to blend a bit more. but I'm not so worried about those the patchiness of the markers. You can see now I'm going over those shadow areas. I go over those separately, and then I go over with another layer of marker, and you can see those shadow areas still stand out because it's not in my complete coverage. I did those first, and obviously they dried, and then I went on to covering the entire horse with the same color as well. So yeah, and also to get those shadows really dark, try to keep them as to get them dark, keep a darker color for the shadow areas, and then try not to use that dark color in your final piece, just so that you can have those shadows still showing through on your final piece. So now I'm coming through with a white jelly roll pen. That's just to get all the shiny areas and the lightest areas that are on his reins and on the little design on the reins as well, and also the little buckles and belts that need the highlights. So I just use that to get those brightest areas, and then I'm just going in and coloring in the saddle and getting all those finishing touches done or layers done on those, as well as the little bag or satchel that he's carrying on the side of the horse. So I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to like and share. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions, and don't forget to subscribe. Till the next one, bye.